Hi there. Today's cybersecurity news will just be three main focus. We have lots of other cybersecurity news that are ongoing. However, we'll just discuss three of them. First is the Lenovo Webcam FHD. This particular webcam has been noted to have a flaw which remote attackers have exploited. Although a patch has been deployed since then, however, this is called the BadUSB attack. So if in your system or your organization you do use the Lenovo 510 FHD camera, please take note of this and always patch for this particular detachable device. So the camera in itself actually provides you with high quality pictures, especially people who do online meetings and things of that nature. So this particular issue was presented at DEF CON 33 security conference recently, and it talks about how this camera can be exploited and open victims of this or owners of the system to vulnerabilities of them not understanding or knowing that they are being watched, such that you do not know that you're exploited. You are being recorded, silently recorded, and information is being sent back to the attacker. So one of the major issues with this is that whenever it comes to USB firmwares or any attachable accessory, hardware accessory to a system, their firmware can be reprogrammed for malicious intent, and this will open the system owner to be vulnerable to different types of attacks. They have since patched this issue, this particular vulnerability since April of this year. However, in the case of potential persistent threats to future vulnerabilities should it happen, please take note to always update your patch for this system so that you're not left vulnerable to this particular issue. So it's one of the major ones that has happened recently, and if you have lots of this device within your organization, please take note of this. The second news here is about Cyberattack and HashiCorp flaws. They have experienced identity management flaws in recent times called the vault fault. Okay, so it actually harvests or takes over your credentials without notice. So one of the major issues with this is that it has been noted that this particular flaw has been tried in 5 different ways, noted till date. It can be more, but you need to check the CVE file. So it's a collection of 14 vulnerabilities called the vault fault. It doesn't require multi-factor authentication to get into your system, and once it's in there, it's able to impersonate and escalate privileges. That means it can get more access to more sensitive data than the initial account that you went through with. So please take note of this. We do understand that it says Cyberattack and HashiCorp are experiencing this, but other organizations not as large or well known as both companies might be facing a similar attack. So you can always check how the vulnerability issues were sorted, because HashiCorp actually says they have a vault lockout protection logic, which they initially designed against brute force attacks or attempts. Okay, so this is when people try to force their way into a system using certain passwords. So that is one of the things that they've done in place. However, you should try to understand that there will always be some people who might have been at the unfortunate end of these attacks. So the shortcomings of this attack says malicious attempts on access control should not be able to bypass multi-factor authenticators, which should reinforce who the individual who is getting into the system is. So the organization or the threat actors who pushed out this particular attack have been at the other end of exploiting other people through ransomware vectors, demanding for large sums of money or getting money through crypto currencies. Okay, so it is able to get into a system by bypassing what should be your typical authentication. It gets itself the right kind of privilege, and it embeds malicious payload. So when we say malicious payload, a payload is a signature. So it puts a malicious signature or method in which is going to operate into the host system, and with that it's able to trigger whatever it is that it wants to do onto the system. So it is important that you take note of this. For an organization, you can also fall victim to this. Be proactive about your security. The last news here is about Google. So Google confirms a data breach, which actually is in relations to a Salesforce customer relation management system. So Salesforce is a customer relation management system, and Google has a specific one for businesses that it helps to host services, resources, and things of that nature. The major victims at the end of this attack are small and medium-sized businesses. They have since patched the issue, and I believe they said 2.55 million data breach data records were breached in this particular attack. So the major faults, or how they got in, was through a social engineering attack, also known as phishing attacks, but they used the voice phishing attack, phishing. So there was a person who impersonated a Google IT personnel and was able to get access into a system, and since then they were able to harvest lots of contact information of small and micro-sized businesses and medium-sized businesses, and with this, some people were at the other end of this, potentially open to fraudulent activities. So down the line, Google did confirm, and they said we've been able to contain this particular problem within a small time frame. So they've blocked the attacker's access. They've done a comprehensive analysis, impact analysis, what it impacted, what it did not, and also added more extra security and notified the affected customers to beef up their security. So excuse me, similar attacks have been afflicted on companies like Cisco, LVMH, the clothing or the fashion brand Adidas, and other companies. So the attackers behind this are out for money, really, because ransomware attacks have been on the rise. It has always been there, but there is more pressure to actually get sensitive information or sometimes blackmail. So they usually demand for ransom payments, and hence companies like Google cannot afford to let this slide. So this will be all for the cybersecurity news for today. Thanks for listening, and remember, you need to keep yourself safe both physically and digitally.